everybody. Welcome to Collaborating Agents. And this is our bi-monthly collaboration meeting. And today we're going to talk about working with a transaction coordinator. We have Nicole Jordan of Jordy Lux Transactions, and she is my transaction coordinator. And I love how she just takes our customer service to the next level by providing all of the same things that I would provide to a client, which is a lot. And so I love that her thoughts and everything are along the same lines as mine. So take it away, Nicole.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the intro. But yes, we're going to talk about unlocking success and how a transaction coordinator can elevate your business. And this can apply to an agent who just started and maybe has 1 or 2 transactions, or an agent that has multiple transactions. This can benefit anyone. I even have clients currently that are dual career and just do it sometimes, and that can help tremendously to have someone available while they're working. So let's dig in. I wanted to focus on we're going to skip the slide for now, but I wanted to focus on the role of a TC in general. This is not in relation to my current business. It's more in general. I think that's going to be helpful to start there. And if anyone is interested to talk more about what we do, we can certainly do that at another time. But talking more about the role of a TC and what their role is really a project manager for real estate transactions. So they oversee all the detailed tasks and schedules and communication to ensure that all parties are aligned, from the lender, the attorney or title, and your clients, as well as the co-op side, that we're all aligned on expectations, deadlines, and ensuring that we are able to have a smooth closing process. It sounds basic and straightforward, but there's like about 99 tasks that we do on with my company, for example, to ensure that that does happen. So as far as some of those examples and activities that some TCs do, they send introductions to your clients, and also an introduction to the lender, attorney, or title, and the co-op side. So again, everyone has the contract, and they can start the application process. They can open escrow, and just basically everything gets kicked off, and everyone understands the deadlines on the contract. And then we also can help on scheduling inspections and coordinating deposits. Of course, we do compliance and paperwork, which I always say it's about 10% of what we do. There's a lot more of other activities that we do, but that is the one that we do the least amount. And that's just because we have a system. Everything that we have is systemized. So it's easier for us to do certain things than an agent that may not have a structure just yet. We're also the liaison between parties for any communication. So even if you're on the go showing homes or anything like that, we're able to respond on your behalf for anything that is within scope. We also help manage deadlines. Of course, that's a big component. Some TCs do this, some don't, but weekly updates is a big part of just making sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, from getting updates from the lender or the attorney and title, and then also sharing that back with your client so they kind of see what's going on, because most of the time clients don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and all they think that agents do sometimes is help you find a house. But a lot of the work happens behind the scenes. So it's good to kind of put that forward and say, hey, this is what we're doing also behind the scenes. Like a lot of setting fires off, for example, that people don't know, because we want to take that stress away from them, and we carry all that stress. And then preparing for closing day to ensure that the client knows everything that they need to know before they close. So that's things like making sure that your closing is scheduled, utilities are gathered so that they know who they need to call and get set up before closing day. And we also help review the final ALTA to make sure that if there was supposed to be a credit, if there was supposed to be a home warranty added, that's paid by the seller, or just any nuance that we have access to, then it's on there, and we can at least give that preliminary review before the agent does that final sign off. Now we're going to talk about what ATC does not do. This is important to go over just because, clients can get started working with a TC and they have an assumption on some of these things being included, especially when you're a licensed TC. So I am licensed in North Carolina, but I get some very, very common questions, which is, well, you're licensed, so that you could probably help with negotiations. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions, that we cannot help with negotiations, even if we're licensed. And the easiest way to explain why is because when it comes to liability and insurance coverage, if I was helping with anything that required an agent hat, I would not be covered as an agent if I'm acting as a TC, because I am not representing that buyer and seller in that transaction. So that's like the easiest way to explain it. And our source is directly from our liability insurance as a TC, and we have a liability insurance as an agent. So if it requires an agent hat, we usually cannot really get involved in that sense. Now, the one thing that we can help with is if you do, and this is at least for Geordie Lux transactions, there's some TCs that don't help with this at all. But if you finish your negotiations or starting your negotiations, but you need help drafting addendums, we can help draft it. You review it, you approve it, and we can send it out for signature and just kind of facilitate that. But as far as the active negotiations, it would be handled by the agent directly. And then admin support is another piece that can be misconstrued with some of the things that I mentioned above. But when I mention admin support, I mean things that are outside of the transaction. So think of us jumping in more when you go under contract and we have a start date and an end date. And that is everything that we're managing, is everything in between. But if it falls outside of that, it's considered out of scope. So things like managing your inbox, updating your CRM, managing social media accounts, attending closings, even though that's kind of in that bucket, that's something that we won't do. And also just lead generation activities. Anything like that would fall more under a virtual assistant or a real estate executive assistant, any other kind of term. So a lot of top producers that we work with have both. They have an admin or a VA, and then they have a TC as well. So some benefits, I think this is important too, to talk about what are the benefits of using a TC. Let me make this bigger because it can get a little smaller. So increased efficiency is definitely a big one. You're saving time. So the TC is handling the administrative workload and freeing up your time so that you can focus on lead gen activities or meeting with buyers and sellers in a more structured format, or showing the houses without stress. Because you don't want to be showing houses and you're like, wait, do I need to do something for this transaction? Did I send the contract out? What is the deadline due today? Like, that's a lot to worry about, and you just want to focus on your other components. As an agent, you're kind of wearing every hat. You are a business owner, so you're wearing every single hat. And it's important to understand that you can delegate and should delegate. Every company has different workers in their business, and it's important for every agent to understand that that's what you should do. You should be leveraging so that you can focus on what you do best. Streamlining processes. So with a TC managing deadlines and paperwork, everything is going to run more smoothly, more efficiently, because again, this is what we do. So we have a system, we have a process, and everything is predictable. So you want that experience versus an agent who's like, well, I really want to create this experience for my client, but I don't have time to create this Canva template, and I don't have time to do all these other jazzy stuff to make them feel very special, but I want to. So that's perfect. This is when you should partner with a TC that can do that for you and create that experience for your client, which kind of goes into the next one, which is improve client experience. So by having someone assigned to your transaction as a TC, they're going to have consistent communication. So if you're busy and unavailable, as long as it's within scope, we can also respond on your behalf for a lot of the questions that your client may have. So we can be your go-to in that sense. So of course, they don't see us separately. Your client will see us as a team. It's part of your team, which it is what that is. We are a partnership. So if they're happy with the services that the TC does, they're also going to be happy with the agent, because at the end of the day, that's who they hired, and they're seeing you guys as a team. So that's pretty much it for the client experience. So like for us, that's one of the things we take pride in our company. So we do a lot of things to kind of wow your clients. So like that's always our goal. We want to do something that will wow you. Everything that we do is personalized to the agent, because again, this is your business that we're working for. The next one is very important, which is growth. So that's why I say it can apply to someone who has one transaction. And that's because it will help you grow. You want to leverage as quickly as you're able to, so that you can scale and you can grow. So you're able to handle more transactions than you would without a TC. And that's just because you're freeing up time and space so that you can handle more transactions. So if you already are in the growth stage, but you're handling all the transactions, you're doing a lot that you shouldn't have to be doing, even though some people enjoy doing that. But you really should focus on the next stage, which would be scaling. And just focusing on those core activities. So again, lead generation, activities, marketing. There's so much that goes on every single month. A lot of the top producers are really consistent with what they do, so that those lead gen are time blocked. Those marketing efforts are time blocked. So it's like, it'll give you time to focus on that more efficiently, get more creative. When you're so busy and swamped and overwhelmed, you lose that creativity. And I've experienced it myself, so I can definitely relate. So it's important to be able to do that for scalability and growth. Another part is just having a work-life balance. You don't want to feel like you're working 24/7, even though that is like what a lot of people promote is, hey, agents work 24/7. You want to at least have a little bit more balance. So having a TC on your side will give you a little bit more time back to be able to focus with family. I always say for us, we're very family oriented. So if you're on vacation, you have a special day, or you know you're going to be super busy that day, you just give me a notice so that I know I need to do a little bit more than normal for you that day to make sure you're taken care of. So some of that, just an example of how what I just went through, this is some of the feedback that we've gotten from our clients. And they kind of hit some of these categories. So first one with Scott, this one's more tailored to focusing on other priorities. So Nicole and her team are on it. It's so nice to know that we can rely on them to handle the details so that we can focus on contracts. They have extremely tight systems to make sure that no detail is missed, and they are quick to respond to our needs with a can-do attitude. Highly recommend. So again, this is kind of a mixture of being able to focus on other things, and at the same time, our clients are being satisfied. Julie is another one, focus more on client experience. Nicole and team exceeded the 5-star level. Their systems are flawless and provide a positive experience for your clients, which makes you stand out amongst the other agents. They will keep everything organized between the lender, client, and you, and the other agent to keep the process on schedule. And then growth from Angie Castro. And it's funny because if you know Angie, I don't know if you're in the area or not, but she actually has started her own brokerage and she has grown. And now they're using our sister company, Virtual Lux Solutions, for VA services, because now they need a different level of support. But hers was Jordy and her team have quickly become an essential part of my business. In order to grow, I needed to let go of the transaction management side of business, and Nicole made the switch easy. I'll continue to work with her team and highly recommend them. It's really live examples of feedback of what I just went over. I actually had an event that I went to with an agent, and he had told me how he had maybe 10 transactions at one time, and he didn't want to just leverage yet. He wanted to kind of take control of everything. So he focused on those 10. And at the end, once everything was completed and he did all the TC work himself and also try to manage everything else, his pipeline was dry. He did not have any time for lead gen. He did not have time for marketing. So he had to start over. And that's something to really keep in mind. You want to use your time wisely, and you don't want to be in that predicament where you're going to have to keep starting over every single month because you decided that you were going to keep and hold tight to everything. So any questions?
Well, okay, I unmuted myself. All right. So cost.
Yeah, sure. So if you wanted to go over more of like our stuff, let me pull that up quickly because I did have that open just in case I did have that question. So that's more towards, and this is all part of like the discovery call that I go through, and then I can actually just kind of give you a snippet of this too. But some of our templates that we do to stand out are here, so you can kind of check them out. You know, we do an under contract timeline, we do a list of utility providers, and all these colors and stuff, they're all going to be tailored to the agent. So if they have a special branding, they have special colors and logos, we incorporate that.
And that's one thing that I love because I take pride in my brand. So
yeah, you should. It's yours.
Yeah. That's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of branding. So
exactly. So we understand that too, because we take pride as well. But when it comes to us working for our agents, that's why I say it's a partnership. We definitely want to make sure you shine. So yeah, a final walkthrough guide, and I'll say this one's popular. Every buyer prints this out. If their buyers may not be very like heavy on checking their email and stuff, then agents will print this out on behalf of their client. And again, it just really makes you look put together and organized, which is how they should feel like, okay, you have it under control. Well, I stress on the other things, because when buyers especially are going through this process, I mean, sellers have their own stresses too, but they have to worry about meeting all these buyer conditions. And the last thing they want to worry about is the basics. And like, that's why for you to show them that you have it under control, these are very good ways of doing that. We have a closing prep checklist as well. That is kind of like a week before closing, and they get all the next steps within the next few days. They also have a checklist, like, especially for those people that love checklists, like this is a winner. I get a lot of feedback like, oh my God, thank you. I'm going to print this out and I'm going to start checking it off. So I'm like that too. I have my little checklist that I use, and it's just, it helps you and you feel like you're completing a lot more stuff. So the what happens next, I think this is also another one that's important, you know, as a buyer or seller. You're under contract and you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? What's next? What do I need to focus on? So of course, our introduction usually lays out what the next steps are, but this is also a visual, just because again, it can be very overwhelming when you start hearing all these deadlines and all these things you have to do. So this kind of lays out expectations, and it kind of reduces and removes stress, and also reduces questions. And we have one for the sellers as well. So you can, you know, we use one depending on what side you're representing. And then this one's another one that we use for all other parties. This is not shared with your client just because it has more information that you don't really want to share. It's more for the lender and the attorney or title company and co-op side. So this will go over, and let me try to maximize it a little bit more. This will go over commissions. You know, many times they need to know things that are going to be on the CD. So this should have all the things that should be on the CD. And this is what we use to validate that. We're updating it as we go along through the transaction. So we have one place to check everything, which is something that also agents may not have access to. So when you're validating something, you have to go off memory. You may have to search and see, what am I validating? Or, you know, so it's easier to just have like one source to check. But it has, you know, what type of loan it is, the purchase price, the deposit amounts, if there's a buyer credit, if there's any special commission notes. You know, sometimes they could do like a reduction of commission to pay for a home warranty for a buyer, or it was part of the negotiation, or whatever that may be. Also, if the home warranty, if there's something that the seller's paying for the home warranty, will be notated here too. If there's a rent back due, that's another one that some agents, especially if you're new in the business, may forget about this item. But if there's a rent back situation and they're supposed to be paying something at closing, then that will be notated here too. Of course, all the deadlines would be here, and also all the key stakeholders involved in the transaction, their contact information and everything will be listed here.
And I save that in my client file, so that when all is said and done, if there's a question, I can just go right back to that document and everything is there.
Exactly. So it's very handy. I use this like all day, every day. Whenever there's a question, let me check. So it's very, very awesome to have this. So some of our services and fees are listed here, and this is high level. We have our contract to close package, which again, once you're under contract, whether you're on the buyer or the seller side, it's $400 due at closing. So that's also another really good thing to keep in mind. Many agents will say, well, I can't afford it, but actually you should have the ability to hold off on paying until closing. So that gives a lot of relief. I know a lot of agents don't know that. They think it's due up front, but nope, it is due at closing. And then another really best part is that we also forgive 2 terminations. So per agent per year, we allow 2 terminations with forgiveness. No, nothing is due for that file. And to be honest, most agents will not pass 2 unless there's something crazy happening in the market, which we did kind of experience that with the rates increasing that one time period. And that's kind of what led to having some type of policy. But 2, I think, was the sweet number that would allow agents to have those terminations without stressing. And then pre-listing services. So this is another thing that most agencies don't do, but we actually offer different packages, and everything may not be listed here, but at a high level, we have a pre-listing service package, which I call the full service. And that's us entering everything in the MLS, adding the remarks, adding the photos, but also a little bit extra. So sending an introduction to your client, introducing the kind of documents that we would have shared because we would have prepped the listing paperwork for you as well. And also explaining what was just sent to them electronically to sign, just kind of being available and making sure that that gets completed and completed properly. And then kind of just showing them the process. So next step, we're going to draft your listing. We're going to send it to you for review and approval. When we get the photos, we share that back with them. When we go live, we'll send a different email. Congratulations, your listing is live. You can see it here. So just having that full experience is really another, way that you can elevate your business overnight. So that's one. But if you're like, you know what, I don't want all the jazz. I'll do all the other stuff. Just enter it in the MLS. We have that option too, which is $150 for that. Or if you're like, I just want you to enter in the MLS and do compliance, then that's $200. And those are due upon completion just because it's a little bit different from the contract to close. We have a set date and we know when they're closing. With the other ones, they can be on the market for a while. So we've done the work already. So that is what is due upon completion. And then we also do offer drafting, and that's currently we do it for North Carolina, South Carolina, but we serve over 10 states and growing. We have a process to onboard new states, so we don't really have a lot of limitation. I would say the only one for sure is California, just because they're very strict and defer in a lot of what we can and cannot do. So I think that's the only one that I can definitely say we don't service. But outside of that, we do serve a lot of different states.
Did you find out about Ohio?
I have not looked into Ohio yet, but I will after I get off this call, since I'm going to have it on my mind. I'm just going to try to see if I can access it online. If not, they may be closed today because of the holiday, but
yeah. And I know you're in Washington because that's when I used you. So
yes, exactly. And we have a very thorough process to onboard. Like I had, sometimes agents are concerned about using our services if I'm not familiar with a state, but the way that we onboard new states, you really will not be able to tell that we didn't know that state. I have agents who always say that, like I'm surprised that you're able to go in so efficiently, but that's because we read the contracts. Believe it or not, a lot of people do not read contracts, and we do. So even with new builds, we read it from top to bottom because you never know what's in there. They're always different. And that's what is giving you the information on what you need to manage. Yeah. So that's when I'm reading the contract, I have my standard questions like do they have an escrow deposit and any other deposit? Like I have my standard questions that I'm trying to find within that contract and any outliers. And then I send it over to the agent for confirmation. Is this the same understanding that you have with your state? And we have a dialogue. So it's a very good process. And then the other thing is we use Airtable as our system. So our system allows us to create any flexibility and implement any new tasks specific to a state, specific to a broker or agent. And it tells us every single day what we need to do. So it's structured in a way where I can create anything and any system.
Yeah.
So that's our fees and templates. I think the only other thing that I can think of that I'm trying to see, is our agent portal. So another thing that we have is our agent portal. That could be the last thing we go over. Let me see what that was. If I have it in here, I had done an example. I think it was this one. I had done a workshop before, so this kind of has some of it. But here's an example of our portal where you log in. Every agent has access to their own portal. You'll have your information. You can submit new intakes from here. It'll have lifetime orders, how many you've closed for the year, and any active orders. And then once you click on your active transaction to see the details, you'll go through this snapshot. And it's similar to that transaction summary that I had, but at least you have access to it at any point, and it's live information versus a document that was printed 2 weeks ago. This one is live. And the best part about it is this timeline. So this timeline will show you, is it red, green, or yellow, or just hasn't started? So it has contact information of everybody, and also all the contingencies that you can think of. Like there's some states that contingencies are like random. So we have that much flexibility that we can add. I think we have up to 20 contingencies that we can add ad hoc. So it would be on this timeline if there was a contingency. So you'll see it all here. And this is also what we send to your client on a weekly basis to let them know this is where our weekly status report. And we always get great feedback because, again, they're seeing it progress and they see it being completed. So it's a lot of positive feedback that we've gotten with that implementation. And also closing details. You want to know, is it a mail away or not? When is the buyer signing? Have we shared commission instructions, which is something that we do? What's the status of the utility list? And closing prep activities. Have we already sent out the closing prep email or not? And have we coordinated keys? So this one's land. So there was nothing to coordinate there, but just an example. And this is one of the feedbacks that we got. So this is an example of one of the weekly status emails that we sent to our clients. And this was one of the responses that we got from the client. So they're definitely loving the progress emails. So yeah, that is all I had on my end.